There is a moment we have all known, a moment when the carefully constructed architecture of our plans is met by the indifferent tide of reality. A project you poured your soul into is rejected. A relationship you believed was your foundation crumbles. A diagnosis arrives, uninvited and unwelcome. In these moments, the world seems to shrink to the size of a single, piercing question. Why me? This question is a cry of resistance. It is the sound of our will clashing with the will of the universe. We push back, we bargain, we lament what could have been, what should have been. We fight a battle against the past, a war against what already is. And in this fight, we exhaust ourselves, we embitter our spirit, and we bleed the color from the present moment. But what if there were another way? Not a way of passive resignation or forced positivity, but a more profound, more powerful orientation toward life itself. What if, instead of fighting reality, we chose to embrace it? Not just to tolerate it, but to actively love it in its entirety. This is the radical proposition at the heart of an ancient and enduring philosophy encapsulated in two Latin words, Amor Fati, a love of fate. This isn't merely an intellectual curiosity, it is a practical tool for forging an unbreakable spirit. It is the art of seeing everything that happens in your life, the triumphs and the tragedies, the joys and the sorrows, the expected and the utterly unforeseen, as necessary, as desirable, even as beautiful. It is the secret to transforming poison into medicine and obstacles into opportunities. Today, we will explore this profound concept. We will dismantle the mechanics of our resistance to fate, and then, step by step, we will learn the Stoic art of not just accepting our destiny, but of falling in love with it. The phrase Amor Fati was famously coined by the 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. But its spiritual roots run much deeper, drawing nourishment from the hard, practical soil of Stoicism. The Stoics, from the slave-turned-philosopher Epictetus to the Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius, built their entire system of ethics upon a single foundational insight: the dichotomy of control. They argued that the world is divided into two distinct categories: that which is within our control and that which is not. Our judgments, our opinions, our intentions, our desires, our actions, these are ours to command. The external world, however, is not. The weather, the economy, the actions of other people, our health, our reputation, our very mortality, these are subject to the grand unfolding logic of the cosmos, or what they called fate or providence. The Stoics observed that the vast majority of human suffering arises from a simple confusion between these two categories. We try to control the uncontrollable, and we neglect to control the one thing we can, our own mind. Marcus Aurelius, arguably the most powerful man in the world at the time, wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the seed of Amor Fati. It is the recognition that the universe is not happening to you, it is simply happening. The event itself is neutral. It is your judgment of the event that makes it a catastrophe. A lost job is not inherently a tragedy. It is an event. It only becomes a tragedy when we label it as such, when we attach a story of failure and despair to it. But it could just as easily be labeled an opportunity for reinvention, a catalyst for discovering a new path. The event is stone, our interpretation is the chisel that carves it into a monster or a masterpiece. While the Stoics laid the groundwork of acceptance, it was Nietzsche who took this idea and set it ablaze. For him, Amor Fati was not just a grim acceptance of the inevitable. It was a passionate, joyful, and life-affirming embrace of all of existence. He declared, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati," that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. Love it. This is the radical leap. It's one thing to bear a difficult situation with stoic resolve. It is another thing entirely to love it. To look at the betrayal, the failure, the loss, and to say not just, "I accept this," but "this too was a necessary part of the painting of my life." The dark pigments were essential for the light to have meaning. This is the challenge and the promise of Amor Fati. It is the shift from victim of circumstance to a willing co-creator with destiny. But to understand how to cultivate this love, we must first understand its opposite, our deep, instinctive resistance to fate. Why is our default response to fight against what is? The answer lies in the architecture of the human ego. Our mind is a tireless storyteller, and the story it likes to tell most is one of control. We create intricate blueprints for our lives. The career we will have by 30, the family we will build, the person we will become. These blueprints become our identity. We attach our sense of self-worth and happiness to their successful execution. When reality deviates from this blueprint, we don't see it as a simple course correction. We see it as a personal attack. The ego interprets the unforeseen event as a flaw in its story, a failure of its control. The suffering that follows is not caused by the event itself, but by the gap between our expectation and the reality. The larger the gap, the more intense the pain. Think of it like this. Imagine you are holding a rope in a tug-of-war with reality. You have your plan, your expectation, and you are pulling with all your might. Reality, immense and unmovable, simply holds its ground. The strain you feel, the burning in your hands, the exhaustion in your muscles, this is your suffering. It is not inflicted by reality, but by your own pulling, your own resistance. Amor Fati is the wisdom to simply let go of the rope. When you let go, you are not defeated. You are liberated. You are free to see the situation for what it is, not what you wished it would be. You can now assess, adapt, and act from a place of clarity and strength, rather than from a place of desperate, futile opposition. This resistance is also fueled by a cognitive habit we could call the tyranny of the counterfactual. We torment ourselves with alternate realities. If only I had left 5 minutes earlier. If only I hadn't said that one thing. If only I had taken that other job. We live in a phantom world of what might have been, a world that exists only in our minds, and we use this imaginary perfection to poison our actual present reality. Amor Fati is the antidote to this poison. It declares that the life that is happening is the only one that could have happened. Every choice, every accident, every twist of fate has led to this precise moment. And this moment is the only one we have. To wish it were different is to wish our entire existence were different, to unravel the very thread of who we are. So how do we move from this state of resistance to one of loving embrace? It is not a single sudden switch, but a gradual process, a discipline that can be cultivated through practice. We can think of it as a journey through three distinct layers: acceptance, transformation, and finally, affirmation. The first layer, and the foundation for everything else, is acceptance. This is the most misunderstood step. Acceptance is not passivity. It is not resignation. It is not agreeing that a terrible situation is good. It is simply the clear-eyed, non-judgmental acknowledgement of reality as it is. It is dropping the story and seeing the facts. If you receive a difficult medical diagnosis, acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means saying, okay, this is the reality of my body right now. These are the facts. The denial, the bargaining, the anger, these are useless energies. Now, with this clear understanding of reality, what is the most effective and virtuous way for me to act? Acceptance is the prerequisite for intelligent action. You cannot solve a problem you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot navigate a territory you refuse to see on the map. This is the sobriety of the Stoic. It is the ability to see the world without the intoxicating filter of our desires and fears. It is to look at a setback and say, this is, rather than this shouldn't be. This simple shift in language reflects a profound shift in mindset. Should and should not are the words of a judge attempting to impose their will on the world. Is and is not are the words of a strategist observing the terrain before making a move. Practice this. In moments of frustration, simply narrate the facts to yourself, stripped of all emotional judgment. Not, my car broke down and it's ruined my day, but the car has stopped functioning. I am on the side of the road. I need to call for assistance. This dispassionate clarity is the gateway to peace. Once we have accepted the reality of a situation, we can move to the second layer, transformation. This is the alchemical heart of the practice. It is the art of finding the utility, the lesson, the opportunity hidden within the obstacle. This is where Marcus Aurelius's insight, what stands in the way becomes the way, comes to life. Every event, no matter how unwelcome, presents an opportunity to practice a virtue. A traffic jam is an opportunity to practice patience. An unfair criticism is a chance to practice forbearance and self-assurance. A financial loss is a crucible in which to forge resilience and creativity. A painful illness can be an occasion to practice courage and to reevaluate what is truly important in life. The obstacle is not an interruption of our path. It is the path itself. Consider the famous story of Thomas Edison. When his entire research facility containing years of his work burned to the ground, his son found him standing calmly amidst the smoke and ruins. He wasn't despairing. Instead, he told his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." The next morning, looking at the charred remains, he reportedly said, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." Edison didn't just accept the disaster. He immediately began the work of transforming it. He saw not an end, but a violent and liberating new beginning. An even more profound example comes from the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he describes how, in the midst of unimaginable suffering and degradation, he realized that while the Nazis could control his external environment, they could not control his inner freedom. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Frankl and his fellow prisoners transformed their suffering into a testament to the indestructibility of the human spirit. They found meaning not in spite of their suffering, but through it. This is the power of transformation. It is the refusal to be a passive victim and the decision to be an active agent of meaning, no matter the circumstances. This brings us to the third and final layer, the highest peak of this philosophy: affirmation. This is the Nietzschean leap of faith. It goes beyond finding the silver lining. It is about loving the entire cloud, darkness and all. It is the desire for nothing to be different. This is, without a doubt, the most challenging aspect of Amor Fati. It's easy to affirm our successes, our lucky breaks, our moments of joy. But can we truly affirm our deepest pains, our most humiliating failures, our most profound losses? To do so requires a shift in perspective from seeing our life as a series of disconnected events to seeing it as a single, interconnected whole. Like a great novel, a life requires conflict, struggle, and darkness to have depth and meaning. The hero's triumph is only meaningful because of the trials they endured. The final resolution is only satisfying because of the tension that preceded it. Imagine a beautiful tapestry. If you look at it from the back, all you see is a chaotic mess of threads, knots, and loose ends. It seems random and ugly. This is our normal perspective on life. We see the messy, painful, confusing events up close, and we cannot understand their purpose. But Amor Fati invites us to trust that from the front, from a cosmic perspective, these chaotic threads weave together to create a stunning, coherent, and necessary picture. The dark threads of our suffering are not mistakes. They are essential for providing the contrast that make the bright threads of our joy shine so brilliantly. To love your fate is to love this entire tapestry. It is to look back at your greatest mistake and say, "Thank you. Without you, I would not have learned this crucial lesson. I would not have developed the strength. I would not be the person I am today." It is to look at your deepest heartbreak and say, "You were a necessary part of my story. You carved a depth in me that joy alone never could." Nietzsche proposed a thought experiment to test one's commitment to this idea: the eternal recurrence. He asks you to imagine that a demon were to creep into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. And there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh must all return to you." Nietzsche asks, would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon? Or would you have once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? To be able to answer yes to the demon, to be willing to relive your exact life with every mistake, every sorrow, every moment of agony, alongside every triumph and every bliss, that is the ultimate expression of Amor Fati. It is the final, unconditional affirmation of existence. It is crucial, however, to distinguish Amor Fati from a few things it is not. It is not an excuse for inaction or social injustice. Loving the fact that a system is broken does not mean you shouldn't work to fix it. You accept the reality of the present injustice as your starting point, your call to action. The injustice becomes the material you use to practice the virtues of courage, justice, and wisdom. Nor is it a form of toxic positivity. Amor Fati does not ask you to pretend that pain isn't painful, or that grief isn't real. It asks you to feel those things fully, to honor their reality, and to integrate them into your story as a necessary part. It is about finding meaning in the dark, not pretending the dark doesn't exist. It is the difference between saying, "I'm fine," when you are not, and saying, "This hurts, and I accept this pain as part of my journey, and I will grow from it." In the end, the path of Amor Fati is a path of profound liberation. It frees us from the exhausting war against reality. It frees us from the prisons of regret and resentment. It frees us from the fear of the future because we come to trust that whatever happens, we can not only handle it, but we can weave it into a meaningful life. Life will inevitably provide you with storms. You cannot control the wind or the waves. That is not your domain. You can try to fight them, to curse the sky, and you will only break your mast and exhaust your crew. Or you can practice Amor Fati. You can accept the reality of the storm. You can use the ferocious wind to test the quality of your sails and the skill of your navigation. And you can, in a moment of profound clarity, look into the heart of the gale and affirm its wild and terrible beauty, knowing that this too is part of the grand voyage. The goal is not a life free of difficulty. The goal is a life where nothing is seen as an unwelcome intruder, but as a teacher, a challenge, a collaborator in the great project of becoming who you are. It is to look upon your life in its entirety and to say, not with resignation, but with a deep and resounding joy, "Yes, this is my life. I want nothing to be different. I love my fate."